What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of On the Bluff. I'm your host, Christian Fowler. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Gabe Kuhn. Gabe, what is up, brother? How you doing? How was your first full weekend of football?
Oh, it was phenomenal. Can't complain. I'm a little tired though. I'm okay right now, but I was a little tired. I had my dad in town over the weekend, and we were just
Watching football.
I don't know, just all over the place all the time watching football. He's a Colorado alum, so we planned after the Memphis game around that 6:30 start time, and he was not happy. He wasn't an overly happy guy about how that game went. That was nasty. But I man, it was a happening weekend. I enjoyed myself.
Yeah. I was in Oxford Friday and Saturday. Went to the Ole Miss game.
What else is freaking new? What else is new with you,
right?
Man? Good God.
Went and watched Ole Miss beat Middle Tennessee on Saturday, and then
freaking Reb fan Christian
came back to the house, watched Tennessee, NC State. So I didn't get to watch a ton of college football on Saturday, mainly just those two games, and then watched every bit of football I could on Sunday.
All the wall, baby. I still have I have God, what's it called? I'm losing my mind. Red Zone. So I was all over Red Zone yesterday. It's been nice. I bought it last year, a little bit extra, but it's worth it.
Yeah, it's always worth it. And we got another one left on the week that'll be happening in about 15 minutes as we're recording right now. Jets and 49ers.
Hey, any bets locked in, baby? Any bets?
No, not tonight. I got skunked this weekend. Bad. Bunch of bad.
I didn't do that bad, man.
I did not do
I'm about 100 up for the weekend. And I threw a touchdown score parlay because I saw Christian McCaffrey was out. I went, and we'll see. Maybe tomorrow I'll get this payoff by saying it. I had Jordan Mason, Deebo Samuel touchdown score parlay. Anytime.
I think that's a good one. Deebo's going to score a rushing touchdown. I think
they're going to hand him the ball off.
100%.
I know when he went into his new contract, he said, "Hell no, I don't want to do that anymore."
I think he still had like 6 rushing touchdowns last year.
Yeah, but they're gonna put him in the backfield in certain situations, try to get him out into space.
Yeah. Yep. No, it was wonderful with college football being in week 2, NFL being in its first full week, and we'll talk a lot about both of those in the Hot 3. We are fully football-centric Hot 3 today, so nothing more fitting right now, I guess, than starting with Memphis football, who defeated Troy 38-17 on Saturday. This was one of those kind of just lunch pail business-like, go in, take care of business. It wasn't overly flashy. But before you give your thoughts, Gabe, I think the biggest thing, and I'm sure you're going to be in the same boat, last week we harped on running the ball and how it was largely ineffective and unimpressive against North Alabama. That was not the case against Troy. It felt like Silverfield and the staff felt like they had something to prove. It felt like the offensive line felt like they had something to prove, which we both believe that they did after the disappointing week 1 on the ground. 29 carries, 211 yards, 7.3 yards per carry, and 4 rushing touchdowns in this game against Troy. Memphis made everybody feel much better with being able to do that. There were a lot of questions. Sutton Smith, how are they going to make up for that loss? Both of us said lean on Mario Anderson. You don't have much else in the backfield. At least that's proven. You can see it at the ticker right now if you're watching on YouTube. 17 carries, 125 yards, 2 touchdowns. Greg DeRosier looked good as well. 8 carries for 59 yards, broke off a long run. And Brandon Thomas continued to be the short yardage goal line back as he had 2 carries and 2 touchdowns. And that's kind of been his specialty over the last 2 years. So we didn't get a lot out of the passing game in this one. 161 yards and a touchdown from Seth Hennigan. But I love the mentality in this game. Just go in, run the ball, control the clock, prove that we can do it, because we didn't prove that in week 1 against North Alabama. It felt like the mentality for Silverfield and the staff, and I loved it. I think it was the perfect palate cleanser after the disappointing week 1 running the ball.
I want to see them get more balanced, though, as we get to the later parts of the season where we can still throw for 300 and run for 200. That would be really fun. That would be really fun to watch. This wasn't like the most fun game to watch, but I thought it was exactly what I wanted out of this team. They played good defense. Elijah Herring, by the way, on top of like that great performance. I think Mario Anderson Jr. with the 17, 125, 2 TDs was on the offensive honor roll for the AAC. Elijah Herring, we had a defensive player of the week. Maybe I have missed something, but I don't remember the last time that has been the case. 8 tackles. He had the forced fumble. I think he recovered it too. He had a sack.
Another sack. 2 sacks in 2 games now.
Yes, and to be honest with you, like seeing the early returns on a lot of these transfer guys is really cool to see. But they ran the ball. They played good defense. And going forward, I think that's going to be a nice addition. That's very nice to see after that North Alabama game. Obviously, they played good defense, but you can't really see much. But Troy had their hands full. They really couldn't handle this defense this week. They couldn't throw the ball. Goose Crowder gets knocked out of the game early. They couldn't run the ball at all. 3-yard average. But I will agree with you. I think the story of the entire game is you took your yards per carry against North Alabama from 2.3 to 7.3 against Troy. And here's the truth of it. This Troy team is it's a great litmus test for all of your middling games in
yes. Yep.
It's going to be a very similar North Texas team, just like that. Middle Tennessee, very similar. Charlotte, Rice, hell, UTSA maybe. They did not look good. They got their ass kicked by Texas State this week. UAB. Like all these middling teams, I think you got a very good first viewing of what those games can turn out to be.
Yeah, and last thing on this, and then we'll move on. If you look at the defensive box score, you talked about, it was a really good defensive game, overshadowed by the running game. And I think if this is one where you just looked at the box score and you saw 1 sack, you would say, oh, well, they didn't dominate too much on the line of scrimmage. But sometimes sacks don't tell all the story. 8 tackles for loss for the defense, which was very good to see. And if they're going to go into Tallahassee this weekend and knock off an unimpressive Florida State team, they're going to have to control the line of scrimmage. We saw that the line has moved from a 1.5-point Florida State favorite to a 7.5-point Florida State favorite in the last week, which is strange with Florida State having a bye week and not showing anything in what could have been their third game this week, and with Memphis, covering their spread against Troy. Any thoughts or theories about why this line has moved so much with little action between?
I thought it was a pretty the 1.5-point line. I thought was always sort of, I don't know. I didn't think it would stay there. Did I think it would get to 6.5 or 7? No, like it already has. But I think there's a couple of reasons for that. But the Vegas should have known these reasons ahead of time. But I think they've had a week to evaluate. I don't think it's anything Memphis did against Troy that's made it move. What I think it is the fact that you have an 0-2 Florida State team with their backs against the wall, and they've had another week. They've had a full week of preparation on top of the week they're about to get. So I think that's why you're seeing the line move. And it kind of like those reasons are the things that scare me off of Memphis winning this game.
That's so funny. Before I even threw that up to you, I was thinking of, how am I going to come back with it? And my thought was, I have 2 concerns in this game. Florida State's 0-2. They have a lot to prove. And number 2, they're coming off a bye week. That's my only concerns. If this was Florida State had played another game last week, or if Florida State didn't play in week 0 and this was their third game with no bye week and they had lost to Georgia Tech and Boston College, I really wouldn't be concerned about this game at all. But just knowing everything is on the line for them, they're coming off of 2 weeks of preparation centered on Memphis. It's a revenge game, quote unquote revenge game, a return game, whatever you want to call it, for Mike Norvell playing against the school that he came from. Like, there's a lot of storylines in this game, and no, Florida State it has shown at least that they're not a very good football team. But there are reasons, oddly enough, not on the field, to be concerned about this game, and I think those are the very obvious ones.
Isn't it wild how this game, I'm not saying if they lose it, it's going to completely cook their chances at the college football playoff.
It won't.
But at the same time, how this thing turned to shit pretty quickly, didn't it?
It absolutely did.
It was a free shot, top 10 team on the road. Let's see what you can do. You're always wanting to win those games, so I don't think that mentality changes. But now it's 0-2 in the ACC, a team that 1% shot to make the college football playoff, probably less than that if we're being honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
And they have a week of preparation. They're pissed off. That is just the worst possible outcome for what I thought this game would be in the preseason.
Yeah. No,
frustrates the hell out of me.
100% true. And speaking of this game and it maybe not having a huge impact on Memphis's college football playoff chances, I don't think you can make an argument that it is, but I think you can look around and look at what Boise State did this week
Yep.
against Oregon, a top 10 team in the country, 2-point game. Ashton Genty,
Tulane
again, you called him the best running back in college football. He pulled off 196 and 3 touchdowns against the top 10 Oregon team. Extremely impressive. Tulane, that's where I was going next, against Kansas State. They controlled the majority of that game, allowed Kansas State to come back and take control and win that game. But say it comes down to that, and they're looking at, okay, Boise State lost against Oregon.
What's a more impressive loss?
Exactly. And it's a strange argument, especially when we're sitting in week 3 and we don't know how things are going to shake out. But I think we would all say that Oregon is going to finish this season better than Florida State, even if they're not as good as some people thought they were coming into the season. So I don't really think that it can get them held out of the playoff. But I'm not going to say it couldn't
help
either.
you if you lose.
It's not going to help you at all if you lose this game. So must win, I think, is a little bit too much, because I've heard or seen that a couple of times on social media. This has become a must-win game. I don't necessarily think that's the case, because if you ran the table after this, you won the conference championship.
You have a good chance.
Yeah, you have a really good chance. And I don't think too many people are concerned about a week 3 loss in Tallahassee. But it looks so much better, and you have so much less stress if this is a game that you go in and win, because we've seen it. We've seen non-Power 5 schools be competitive against ranked teams so far, and Florida State's not that anymore, but still, a perennial high-powered Power 5 team, Power 4 team. I think Memphis has to have a good showing.
One of the top 15, it still is one of the top 15 programs in the country in college football. So going on the road is going to be really tough anyway. And I don't care what that team looks like. I mean, my hope is, regardless of what happens in this game, that Florida State can maybe rally and get to bowl eligibility. If you lost to, let's say at the end of the year, Florida State's 7-5, you're not going to get killed for that.
No,
I don't think you'll be uplifted by it, but I don't think you're going to get absolutely destroyed by it. Here's the truth of this game. If you win it, you have wiggle room to maybe drop one in conference, because we know these away games are going to be tougher with USF on the horizon, Navy on the horizon, UTSA, Tulane at the end of the year. You just buy yourself more wiggle room to maybe lose one of those games. If you lose it, you have no wiggle room. You have to win out, and then that's where you would put yourself into the college football playoff conversation. But if you lose 2, you're just you put yourself out of it before you even started.
That's exactly it. That's 100% correct. You afford yourself a little bit of wiggle room. Of grace, a chance to breathe and not feel as much pressure and as tight throughout the year, and maybe to play a little bit more loose in some of those potentially more meaningful conference games. And so I think that's a great point. With going to Tallahassee this week, we know how bad DJU has played so far this year. Do you think we see a switch at quarterback this week, or do you think they roll with it?
If you look at that opening line at 1.5 and how far it moved in a week, I don't know. In the back of my mind, I'm like, is Brock Glenn going to run out there? Does Vegas know that they're going to make a quarterback switch, or is it just what we talked about earlier, where they have an extra week of practice and they're kind of pissed off behind the scenes? I don't know. I think if DJU sucks early in that game, you're going to immediately see a switch. I don't think, because I said this on my G5 Classified. And by the way, shameless plug on my other podcast here on the Bluff. Go check that out. We're going to have episode 3. Episode 2 is with Barry Odom, which is another UNLV.
Yeah.
Very, very legitimate in the group of 5 conversation. And they're going to have Kansas this weekend on the road.
Yep.
So that'll be a good resume builder for them if they're able to win. But I basically said Norvell probably spent the past week, right, just threatening everyone's job. That's probably what he's doing.
Yeah.
And he's like, whoever wants to play the hardest is going to be on the field. He pulled a little Penny Hardaway probably this past week. And we'll see how they respond to that. But I know from experience, you lose a couple of games with Mike, he starts to feel that pressure. He's going to put all of the pressure he feels on you that week in practice.
Yeah, and last thing before we move on, because we do actually have some Memphis basketball to talk about this week before we get to the hot three. But to me, I think the biggest thing that I want to see with Memphis in this game is I do not want to see them intimidated early. And I think that's less likely to happen now because of what the beginning of the season has looked like for Florida State. But still, it's the name value. Like you said, it's a perennial top 15 program. It's Florida State. It's Tallahassee. It's not these
the war
players
chant. It's all that stuff.
Yeah,
it's all that.
It's a rowdy environment. And then these players didn't play for Mike Norvell, but there is the added pressure of like, we want to represent for our coach against his former boss. Like, even if that's not talked about in meetings and stuff, that's just human nature. That's just part of it. Like, there's going to be that feeling in some of the players. So I just want to see them not look overwhelmed in this game early. I don't want it to take them a quarter or a half to settle in and say, okay, now they look like they can play.
Right.
Like, you want to see that off the rip because you do not want to give this team that room or that room to build confidence, really, that they haven't been able to build this season. If you go in there and fall flat in the first 15 minutes, you could give a team that desperately needs confidence. So it would just be, to me, the biggest thing for Memphis to come out, look comfortable, look confident early, and feel like, this is not a top 10 team in the country. This is not us slaying a giant. This is us going in and beating a team we feel like we should beat.
What I was sort of debating with myself, like, what are the keys to this game on offense and defense? And, I think everybody has watched Florida State the first 2 weeks and they're like, well, they get ran all over, blah, 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 blah. Listen, I think that to pace the game the right way, the Tigers are going to have some semblance of a run game. Yes. Yeah. But what do those two teams that beat the hell out of Florida State have in common? They have running quarterbacks. They have a multifaceted run game. I don't know if we really have that, looking at the University of Memphis. I think this is going to be a game, pace the game with the run, but I need to see Seth hit. Like, Seth hit again, let's get a 300-yard game. Let's get a few touchdowns to the air. I think that's the offensive game plan that would make me feel a lot better. I know people want to say, okay, run the ball, stop the run. That you win games that way. But I really think that this Memphis team can exploit their secondary more than they've been tested these first two games.
Yeah, you need splash plays. You need big, explosive chunk plays in the passing game, and you need to create havoc on defense, whether that's sacks, tackles for loss, turnovers, forcing mistakes. Those are, to me, that's the two biggest things. You need explosive plays. You don't need to be stuck in neutral for half of the game. You need to be consistent, being able to gain chunk yardage, keep the chains moving, and on defense, be able to get extra possessions.
Hold them under 120 yards rushing, and I feel really good about where you're at. Because DJU, when that offense isn't pacing itself very well, when he doesn't have a good run game, he's screwed. Yeah, people start pinning their ears back. You can blitz him too, because he'll miss things. He's not going to find everybody. He misses throws constantly. So I think if they stop the run well enough, I think it could be a really good day for this defense, because I'm not worried about I'm not worried about their offensive skill players. I'm not worried about DJU. I'm sorry. I'm just not. I know it's a step up in competition compared to the first two games, but there's nothing scary about the passing offense at Florida State right now.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying as far as chunk plays and forcing turnovers. You don't want Florida State to have a neutral game script all game. You want to force them into more passing situations, into third and longs, obvious passing situations, get up a touchdown or 10 points or whatever, and make them feel like their back's even more up against the wall and have to pass and have to kind of press more and more. Because if you put that kind of pressure on DJU, that's
what I'm saying. I think this should be, because of the linebacking core and how good they are. If you've been watching the first couple of weeks, we talked about like the 3-3-5 setup, but they have been doing Jordan Hankins. I'm very impressed. Like, he throws in these different looks and what he's done. And one thing I do like, they'll go to the 4 down front, but they'll walk up Matt Hudson, the transfer from Harvard, on the edge to be a little edge rusher. He's pretty solid at it. Yeah. But I think blitzing, bringing maybe some 5-man and 6-man pressure every once in a while, get that stuff into DJU's face. He may find an open guy, but if that pressure's in his face, he'll miss the throw. We've seen it time and time again. And this, I mean, in that Boston College game, remember the pick 6?
Yeah, terrible.
Pressure right in his face. He's screwed. He just threw it up. 6'6", 250-pound softy. He was scared. He gets scared.
He gets gun shy
after him.
It gets gun shy. All right. So before we get to the hot three, let's transition to some Memphis basketball. It was a very interesting week last week for Penny Hardaway and the Memphis basketball
I love
program.
that word, by the way. Interesting. I love
Interesting.
that. I love
Interesting,
that
I
word.
think is a good way to describe it. You had the announcement of 4 firings of coaches. I think is that right? 4
Yep.
total. So 4 coaches gone at this point in the year is something that you definitely don't see very often. And then a day later, I believe there was a report that there was an anonymous letter sent to the NCAA about more violations at the University of Memphis. So what did you think? And we talked about this, just to be candid. We talked about this at the top of kind of our pre-show screening. We're not going to sit here and harp on this for 30 minutes. We're just not going to do it.
I'm
It's
about talked out of it anyway. I've
yeah,
been
yeah.
doing it for the past week.
It's been discussed a lot. It happened like the middle of last week. It's a lot of just kind of running in circles. So we're just hitting on it here. We'll discuss it a little bit, but we're not parking it here for 15 or 20 minutes. We're gonna kind of get this out there and move on. So just thoughts on it real quick, Gabe.
Um, here's the thing, and I saw Penny Hardaway talk to John Rothstein, and he was, and this is just his tone these days, because he still in his head feels like I don't have to be doing this, and I agree with him. Like he doesn't have to be doing this. He
No,
wanted
he
to give
doesn't.
back to the university, bring a successful basketball program here, but there's been some hiccups, and I understand that, and he feels like he's under the microscope. But let's not get into all that. I think what I have come to sort of surmise this as, it's not what happened, it's how it happened.
Yeah.
You had a bad year last year. And sometimes when you have a bad year, you turn the staff over. But he didn't do that originally.
Right.
We waited till 2 months before the season when a new AD gets in here. Clearly he saw something and gave some pretty strong advice. Hey, Penny, get rid of these guys. You know what I mean? That's sort of probably what happened behind the scenes, even though Ed Scott said on Jeff Calkin's show, this is Penny's decision. Okay, whatever. But 2 months before the season, that's not how that's supposed to happen.
No.
Right? It's what maybe needed to happen, not how it's supposed to happen. Now, with the anonymous letter, same exact point of contention here for me. I don't think it's unreasonable with what we knew about Malcolm Dandridge and all the stuff that was alleged behind the scenes. I don't think it's unreasonable to have an anonymously sourced letter. This happens a lot when you have NCAA allegations against you. But usually when it's an anonymously sourced letter, you don't acknowledge it as a university. You'd say, we don't really comment on anonymous sourcing. We don't comment on anonymous letters alleging what we did wrong. But they acknowledged it and sent it to the NCAA. So once again, it's not what was done, it's how it was done.
Yeah.
And to me, especially the second part of this thing, usually you don't, and I'm not saying this is what's happening, okay? I want to make that clear. Usually when you have like an anonymous source letter that gets turned in and taken seriously by a university, one, it happened, and two, usually they're trying to fire somebody with cause. That's usually, I'm not saying that's what's happening behind the scenes, but I think there's two things that you need to know about that anonymously sourced letter. One, this is the University of Memphis somewhat trying to mitigate their issues by sending this to the NCAA and being transparent.
Yeah.
And two, probably the more important of these 2 bullet points, this is a warning shot. This is a shot. This is Penny. We are not going to allow this stuff to fly anymore. We're not going to let this happen. So you either get right, or we're going to have to probably think about finding somebody else who can lead this program. I think the second part's more important. I truly believe them acknowledging it, putting it out in the media, and sending it to the NCAA is a message to Penny Hardaway. We want to believe that or not.
Yeah, and I'll go kind of a different direction with this. For me, it's got to suck for Memphis fans. Like it just feels like this constant cloud of negativity. And it's been up and down. It's something really good and then something really bad, and then something really good and then something really bad. And this offseason, by all means, since the allegations of last year with the Malcolm Dandridge stuff, everything's been pretty positive. I mean, they brought in guys that we feel like can make a big difference this season. They did a really good job of bringing them early, giving this team time to gel and get chemistry. The coaching staff was largely the same and kept intact, which is not something that's happened very often at Memphis. And it just felt like, okay, there's continuity in the staff.
It's quiet.
It's quiet. There's not continuity in the roster necessarily, but they're getting way more time to prepare together than we've seen the last couple of years. And it was just, like you said, quiet, resoundingly positive. I would say it was much more positive than negative. And then just 2 months before the season, not even really a full 2 months, a month, you start, 2 months. Sorry. I don't know my month. You start getting, this stuff starts popping up. You lose a lot of continuity in the coaching staff. And then it's, okay, is there going to be something else with the NCAA now? It's like Memphis fans cannot get a break with the Memphis basketball program, and they cannot get away from this cloud of negativity. It's just constant. It feels like every time something good happens, there has to be Newton's law of equal but opposite reaction, and something negative is right around the corner. And it's been that way for a while now, and it just can't be fun. Can't be fun to be a Memphis fan in this time.
What gets me too about the staff changes, because they brought in Nolan Smith, brought in Mike Davis. Like I like the staff changes. Like I really do. But again, it's not what happened, it's how it happened. You know what I mean? I thought they made positive staff changes, but it's hard to enjoy them because it's 2 months out from the damn season and they did all of their staff changes at once. And you know, I want to see how this team responds to it. It's hard to create a bunch of chemistry in a month and a half time. Sorry. It just is. And I bet there was some coaches on staff, I think notably Rick Stansberry, who's not going to be here, who created some pretty good relationships with these guys, especially on the recruiting trail, transfer portal, that whole thing. So I'm curious how that all figures itself out. I still think the season can be successful. I do. But they definitely have put themselves in a very peculiar situation. That's the way I'll put it. And I'll leave you with this. And I don't care if people don't like what I have to say about this, but I think everybody should agree this is the overwhelming truth. We want this to be a high-level program, right? University of Memphis wants this to be the high-level program that was laid the groundwork in 2008 and really laid before that with Larry Finch and all the success in the tournament. High-level programs don't have this amount of dysfunction. No. They don't. They have NCAA investigations, sure. They have some issues here and there, but the constant issues – I had, 15, 16 callers. I opened the phone lines on Friday to the callers.
Interesting.
And, I mean, there was like one guy who was just like, I don't know why you're mad at Penny. It's like, well, yeah, you do. You know why people are frustrated with Penny. But most of the callers, I don't even think the word's frustrated, even though they are frustrated. But I think the word for it is just exhausted. I think they're just they're tired. Of all of the dysfunction and problems just year in, year out. Quiet is not a bad thing. And this program under Penny Hardaway has been anything but quiet.
Yeah, you mentioned dysfunction and problems, and thankfully for us, that's not something that we have over here at On the Bluff. With me, with the big guy Gabe, with the other big guy Kenny, no dysfunctionality, no problems. So we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to be back with everybody's favorite, the star of the show, as we like to call him around here, Kenny Stubblefield's bringing us the Hot 3 after this quick break.
I've always thought Norvell wasn't really that tight to me because I was like, bro, this dude ain't it to me, bro. He left with the humility, and that's the only reason why people ain't destroying his ass right now.
That 2019 year is what supplanted his legacy as like, you know, he's the man. Oh, yeah, but let's not forget, he was one missed 20-yard field goal against Tulsa away from all of that being nothing. That one field goal changed everything. That missed field goal sent them to the AAC championship, brought game day to their place. I mean, that field goal changed a lot of people's careers. Ryan Silverfield wouldn't be here. Norvell wouldn't be in Florida State. It just changed everything. So
that's facts. That's facts. Get him out of here. It'll put Memphis in the pole position to go and do what they gotta do to get to the college football playoff. If you win out, you got a chance to win out if you win this game against Florida State.
How crazy is that going to be?
It's going to be crazy.
Tune in to The Anthony Sane Show, Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. weekly on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Ja Morant and Zach Edey were videoed in the lab working on pick and rolls, and it got everybody hot and bothered.
Oh, man. Working on pick and rolls, post-entry pass, lobs, follows where Ja was crashing, Edey was coming in behind him, cleaning up. It made me fired up. He just looks so fluid and so smooth next to Ja that they look like a match made in heaven for their skill sets.
It's just nice to see it because it's all theoretical. Everybody's got a hot take when the Grizzlies used the number 9 pick to draft Zach Edey, a 7'5" big man out of Purdue. This should work. This may do this. This may do that. We've just talked ourselves to death about Zach Edey and Ja Morant. So it was nice, even for a 30-second clip, just to see that they were actually working on it.
Tune in to the $2 Sports Show with Rusty Witten and Drew Gann every Friday at 3 p.m. only on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. What up, boy?
Get it! What up, man?
Hold on, I've been practicing all day just to get all Memphis fans ready for what's happening this weekend.
They don't do it on third down anymore. Isn't that their big gripe now?
Okay, I have a question.
The band has been told not to do it on third down.
No, I don't think the band has been told to do that. So the story that came out today, and this is not a part of the Hot 3, but I wanted to ask you about this, is that apparently Colorado is not allowed to, their Colorado band is not allowed to play their fight song when Shedeur Sanders scores.
True?
I don't know. I don't know.
They wanted to play Perfect Timing, the song that he recorded.
Perfect Timing, that Shedeur Sanders. They want to play that after the touchdown instead of the Colorado fight song.
I want them to lose every single game. I've been off of it since after week 1 last year. I hate it. I can't stand it. They're a terrible team that gets so much love, and I'm tired of it. I don't know if y'all saw it. Y'all probably didn't. But Will Compton, Busting with the Boys.
Man.
Yeah. He's doing all the Nebraska pregame hype videos that they show on the Jumbotron before the game. And y'all gotta go watch it when we're done with this. He ripped Colorado. He was like, they're gonna come in here with their cute Louis bags. He dropped 3 F-bombs in it. And at the end, he was like, he did something with the the perfect time and the watch thing.
Right,
I'm so tired of them. I can't stand it.
No, listen, but I will say, I don't know if that's fully true, because I think I saw Deion Sanders Jr., who does all the social media stuff for Colorado. I think I saw him say that it's not true. I don't know.
Even if it's not, I'm still so.
Even if it's not, it's where did it come from? There's probably some level of truth, even if it was said in jest. You know what I mean?
And I think the sad part is that I think if you heard that story at any other university under any other coach, you'd go, there's just no way that's possible. With this situation, you're like, yeah, I mean, it could be.
I'm at the point where I'm just questioning how long Deion's actually going to be there.
Yeah, maybe these universities need to rethink these former players things. But anyway, we got a Hot 3 to get to.
Yeah, we do. We sure do.
Damn.
He don't want to talk about that anymore, does he?
No, that was a hot take, bro.
Stop giving him attention.
Let's go.
It's a joke.
More style than substance.
Memphis fans about to be
Cuban link chains.
Memphis fans about to be in your DMs, bro. You better. Are you still on your Twitter hiatus?
Yeah, I mean, kind of.
All right, let's get to the Hot 3, boys. We started this tradition last week. We're gonna call it the single greatest tradition on the Bluff. Let's do college football's 3 most and least impressive teams from week number 2.
Gabe, you want it? Do you want me to take it? Take the
I'll
reins.
lead her off. And we're doing top 25 for the most part.
Top 25 teams.
One of them is actually going to be a not top 25 team that pulled a hell of an upset. But then I think least impressive will take
be on the flip side of that.
Number 1 most impressive. Let me go with Texas. Texas 31-12 over Michigan. I thought it would end up this way, but I'm actually bought into Texas. I was kind of, this, both of you guys. I was kind of.
We've both been skeptical.
I was skeptical because it's like they lost a lot of running backs in the offseason to injury. They had to replace their entire defense, Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy in the interior. Their weapons on the outside, no AD Mitchell, no Isaiah or Xavier Worthy. Like, I sort of wondered how that would go. They're damn good. And Quinn Ewers, to me, like right there with Ashton Genty in the Heisman conversation, probably 1 and 2 for those guys, whatever order you want to put it in. And I'm finally seeing from Quinn Ewers what I thought I would see as the highest ranked quarterback in 247 sports history for his composite ranking. You're starting to finally see what he is. He's missed some throws in the past, but he's not missing the same throws that he has missed in the past. He's looking like a legitimate NFL draft guy who should be one of the probably top 2 or 3 quarterbacks taken. And he may put himself by the end of the year as the number 1 guy, because I don't know, Shedeur or Carson Beck have been overly impressive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm going to go with Texas first.
I know I always bring the TMZ to the situation a little bit with y'all. Y'all are real professional and I'm not. But did y'all see that nonsense video of that father getting a picture with his son with Quinn Ewers on the field after the game? No. He gets his son up there. Son comes up there.
Saw it.
Little kid.
And took it, didn't he?
Gives a hug. He took the picture with him, and the father goes, horns down. And so the kid in the picture gives the horns down. I'm like,
it's 31-12. It wasn't horns down the other day.
I'm like, you lame. That like, what are you doing, bro?
Lame ass.
Lame ass. What are you doing?
Yeah. So Gabe, it's going to be tough. So I'm going to call an audible mid hot 3. Let's just go back and forth.
Okay.
On there. So for mine, I'll leave Northern Illinois for you. I'm gonna go Tennessee.
Yep,
Tennessee
that was gonna be another
playing
one.
against
Man,
the top 25 team. It was a pretty close line in this game. I think Tennessee was 6.5-point favorites, and pretty much from the jump, they just
it was not close.
Yeah, NC State looked like the inferior team. Nico didn't have his best game. I mean, he's going to have moments where he looks like a freshman, but the offense still hummed. Dylan Sampson, to me, even, wearing the number 6 might bring it back, but he looks a lot like Alvin Kamara did at Tennessee to me. Contact balance is great. Ability to run through tackles is tremendous. I think he's got like 270 and 6 touchdowns through 2 games. He's been really good. But the defensive line really is the story for Tennessee. They're really like 10 to 12 deep on the D line. They rotate 3 different D line combinations, and there's really not much drop off in between them. They dominated the line of scrimmage. They haven't allowed a touchdown in 3 consecutive games. Albeit that's Chattanooga, Iowa in the bowl game last year, and NC State, but still no defensive touchdowns allowed in the last 12 quarters is impressive. And I think they're up to number 7 now after that win.
They should be.
Yeah, they should be. They look like one of the better teams in college football right now. And they get another easy win against Kent State this week, and then they get a matchup against Oklahoma, who I might be talking about here in a minute.
Yeah, and I'll say this about Tennessee. Their schedule, they do have Georgia and Alabama, but their schedule outside of that, if they get through that Oklahoma game and win, I think they could win 10 games.
Yeah.
I think they'll be on the fast track to 10 wins. And that could be enough, maybe by the end of the year to get you one of those last playoff spots. I'm very curious how that's going to work out. Now, what's funny is I did say, one of the teams I was going to bring up wasn't ranked, but they are ranked this week. And Northern Illinois, number 25, I thought that was that's a little overcorrection, guys.
A little bit.
I think that's a little much, but okay. We'll give it to them for now. I don't think they'll stay there. But for them to go into Notre Dame and win 16-14 in like a knock them down, drag them out fight, and to make Riley Leonard look like one of the worst quarterbacks in the country, which maybe – can we have this conversation? Have we overrated him through the years?
Yeah, he's never been a great passer. He's
a bad
always
passer. It's not even just he's not.
No,
great,
you're right.
A bad passer.
He was very raw coming into college, and he's never fully developed as a passer. He relies on his legs, and they took that away, and he threw for 160 and 2 picks.
2 picks. It was gross. But I'll give Northern Illinois their running back. That guy, I like that guy, man. Ontario Brown, 99 yards rushing, and then he had the 2 catches for 125 for the TD, the long 83-yard deal. I mean, that's probably the biggest win in MAC history, Mid-American Conference history.
Up there.
It gave me shades of, and I know that App State at that time was 1AA, but it gave me shades of the App State,
Michigan.
beating Michigan.
Yeah.
Wow.
Back in the day. It kind of gave me that vibe. Although I don't know, I don't think Notre Dame's very good, I guess. And like in the end of the day, they're not going to get a top 4 seed because they're not in a conference. And now you start looking at the rest of their schedule a little tougher. You're like, oh shit. I think they'll lose another game. If they have 2 losses, are they even going to come close to making the playoff?
No, not at all. All right, let's kick off the least impressive teams. I hinted at mine. You got 2 of the most impressive, so I get 2 of the least impressive. I'm starting off with Oklahoma. A pretty decent amount of hype around Oklahoma coming into this year. First season in the SEC, former 5-star quarterback starting in Jackson Arnold. They just didn't look great in this game. And Houston's not a good football team, I don't think. I mean, they lost by 20 to UNLV, and Oklahoma's offensive line really struggled in this game. They could not get the ground game going at all. Jackson Arnold looked pretty inefficient, couldn't get much going down the field. It wasn't, albeit this is a team that won a game, so there's only so much stock you can put into it. But they went into this game as 28-point favorites and only won this game by 4 points, and at no point did it look safe. It didn't look pretty. Offense sputtered a lot, which is not something that we're used to seeing with Oklahoma's offenses, and maybe it's just having a first-year starting quarterback in Jackson Arnold. But I'm starting to be more concerned about Oklahoma as I mentioned. In 2 weeks, they get into the beginning of the SEC schedule, and if you're struggling against Houston, then that SEC gauntlet is not going to be easy for you whatsoever.
I'm going to go from 1-0 Oklahoma to another 0 Oregon. I got to be honest, and I think this is sort of a carryover from week 1, but to only beat Boise State by 3 after realizing how much work you had to get done after that Idaho game, it just did not impress me. And like, what's really unimpressive defensively, they got absolutely gashed by Ashton Jeanty. And I know there's a lot of teams that will say the same thing about Ashton Jeanty, like they will all probably give up 100 yards rushing to that guy, but 192 and 3 tugs. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Need better than that. This was a team who came into the year as the number 3 overall team, a team that's supposed to have the best offense in America, a team that's supposed to be ready for the Big Ten through their trenches. And I don't see that right now. I just don't see it. They have great talent. Think Dan Lanning can get the ship righted, but I expected a whole lot more after week 1, them screwing around with Idaho.
Yeah, now I've got some good options here. Notre Dame's the obvious, but we did kind of touch on them a little bit. There's a couple other top 25 teams that weren't able to pull it out this week. Alabama struggled with South Florida until the last 5 minutes when they scored 3 touchdowns. They couldn't cover the 27.5 I had them at to pay out $250, but that's neither here nor there. But I'm going to go with Penn State because they were on our list of most impressive teams last week. And this was a game that against Bowling Green, they were 36-point favorites. They had to rally to win this game, which is insane because their defense looked incredible in week 1 against West Virginia. They really shut West Virginia down, who was a much better team, at least on paper, than Bowling Green. But Bowling Green was able to score 27 points. They were up 27-20 at one point, and really it took a late rally from Penn State to win this game. I know we all want to be on the Drew Aller bandwagon because of the talent that he has, but he's just so inconsistent at this point in his career still. And I know this is only his second year as a starter. He's only started, 14, 15 games. But still, if Penn State's going to have an elite year and compete with Ohio State, because Michigan, I don't think they're really having to compete too much with them at this point because they're in trouble. But if they're going to compete with Ohio State, they cannot do this. They cannot almost lose to a Bowling Green team at home.
And what
or were they on the road? They were on the road in this game, right? No, they were at home.
They were at home. They're definitely at home. Bowling Green, they ain't going to damn Bowling Green. I played in that stadium. They ain't going to damn Bowling Green State. But what's crazy about that game to me is if you're just box score watching and you didn't even look at like the final score, you just be like, how does that, like Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, they're 1-2 punch as running backs, combined for 27 rushes for 220 yards.
They're awesome. They're awesome.
But they should, like, if that happens for Penn State, they should be beating the hell out of people, especially Bowling Green. But defensively, they weren't good. Connor Bazelak, the old Mizzou transfer. I was wondering where he was. He was at Indiana. Now he's at Bowling Green. We figured it out. But he threw 2 picks, but he had 2 TDs. He threw the ball relatively well. They just that's supposed to be their strong suit is defense. And I didn't quite see it. I thought offensively they were fine. They weren't like elite. They didn't blow me away. But defensively, to give up 27 points to that Bowling Green team, just like at home, it just I don't know if they were just not ready or what. But the MAC versus ranked opponents, top 10 opponents, they fared pretty well this week.
They did. All right, Kenny, topic number 2. Let's finally talk some NFL.
I know you're excited about this. Let's go NFL Week 1 most impressive teams.
Gabe, you want to start it off? You want me to start it off?
I can go ahead and start it off. And my most impressive team from Week 1. I know that, and I think this is really most impressive guy for the most part, but we'll get to that later. I thought the Bucs were impressive, man.
Yeah.
I know they played the Commanders, and Jaden Daniels didn't look that good. But 37-20, Baker Mayfield, 24 for 30, 289 yards, 4 TDs.
4 tutties.
They ran the ball fairly well. They just handled business in the biggest possible way. And I will say, like, if you just want to go by, like, point differential, you would pick the Saints as one of your most impressive teams.
But it's the Panthers.
The Panthers, are they going to go – I know we have this debate every year around bad teams, but I really mean it this time. Like, I really mean it. I usually stay away from it, especially after Week 1. There's a pretty okay chance they could be a 0-for team this year.
Nah.
I don't know, man. Like,
I mean they're bad.
Like, right now, who can they beat? Like, just think – they're terrible.
They are awful. They lost arguably their best player, too, in Derek Brown for the season.
They're freaking awful, man.
They're bad.
After giving him, what, $94 million this offseason?
Yeah.
I'll start with the Bucs.
Go with the Bucs.
You can do it. You can do it if you want.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
You can do it. I'll do it if you don't.
Okay, I'll let you do it, and I'll chime in. For me, there's not too many great options, but there's a couple I like. But it's hard not to go with the biggest underdog of the week, and that was the Patriots. Did it look impressive? Did it look pretty? No, not at all. It was ugly, but they were, I believe, 9.5-point underdogs in this game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously talking about the New England Patriots here. Big-time underdogs. Bengals are expected to be back on a rise this year after getting Joe Burrow back. And the Patriots gave them zero room to breathe. They smuggled them defensively. They couldn't get any rhythm going. When they were about to score their first touchdown, Tanner Hudson had it punched out, and it was returned by Marcus Jones. Ramondre Stevenson looked great in this game, over 100 yards on the ground. Patriots controlled the clock with him. Jacoby Brissett didn't play great, but he played mistake-free football and was able to get the ball out of his hands. No turnovers in this game. And like I said, it was ugly. It was one of the more boring games of the weekend. But a lot of people peg the Patriots as the worst team in the NFL going into the season, and it's pretty easy to see why. But they pulled out a big upset in Week 1. Like I said, the biggest underdog of the weekend. Gerard Mayo got his first win in his first game, and it looked like a Patriots win. It looked like, a hard-nosed defense, controlling the ball on offense. It looked like a Patriots win, and it's not really surprising when you consider that it's Gerard Mayo calling the shots now.
So I'm going to go with your Dallas Cowboys, 33-17 on the road against the Browns, and the Browns were actually favored in the game.
Yeah,
1.5-point favorites. And what's funny about this game, it wasn't like Dak Prescott put up 300 yards through the air. It's not like they had a great rushing attack, although it was a little better than I kind of expected. 4 yards to carry for Zeke Elliott in 2024. I'll take that every day of the week.
Completely agree.
but their defense was just smothering
Lights out
the entire day. And obviously Deshaun Watson helps the cause because he's not very good anymore. He's not good in the Kevin Stefanski system.
It's too much. It's too timing based.
It's way too timing based. And he's just like, on some of those play action shot plays, he just lays it out there and he throws it out of bounds. It just looks off.
Just quickly, he might be cooked. He looks cooked. There's nothing that we can really prove to say that he's not cooked. But if he was to ever reach that status of the Texans again, he would have to be allowed more creativity and freedom.
Yes, he'd have to. You have to
not have that in Stefanski's offense.
You have to keep him. You have to keep him at the in shotgun. Let him go cook that way. That's how you let him use his legs every once in a while.
Yeah, which is wild because who's his offense coordinator now? Ken Dorsey, who was with Buffalo and allowed Josh Allen to do pretty much whatever he wanted.
Let's be honest, Kevin Stefanski's more of the offensive coordinator.
Correct. And he's so timing.
He's vanilla and play action, and you look at Baker Mayfield getting out of that system, how good he's been since he's gotten out.
It's an old school pro style offense,
and he was cooked when he was with the Browns. Did not look good. Everybody wants to talk about Baker since getting out of that offense and how the Browns screwed up. I don't think it ever would have worked out with Baker.
It wouldn't have.
So, but there is that. But I look at this Cowboys defense. Yeah, they had 2 takeaways, 2 interceptions. They had a forced fumble, but 6 sacks. All of the questions about what is it going to look like. They lost a little bit of depth with their edge rushers, that type of thing. What's it going to look like with their rush defense? I was impressed with the havoc they were able to create. They were in the backfield every play. Micah Parsons was freaking phenomenal. He was the one who caused that first pick. He came unblocked off the right side and just knocked that up in the air. It was caught. But that defense looks for real again this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if at some point we're talking about them in a top 5 for total defense. They looked that way in week 1. I realize the Browns probably made it pretty easy, but to go on the road as an underdog, play that well on the defensive side of the ball, tip the cap.
Yeah. Last thing, and then we can move on to the last point. I won't even throw another team. I just want to talk a little bit about the Cowboys. Not that I'm jumping on that bandwagon or anything. We know that I'm going to be the last one to get on. But the linebackers looked way better than I thought they would. Eric Kendricks looked like his old Viking self, and I guess that shouldn't be as surprising as it is to me because he is playing for his old defensive coordinator in Mike Zimmer. He knows the scheme very well. In LA, the last whatever he was there a year or two, he didn't look like the same player as he was in Minnesota, but he looked really good. And I'll give you a name.
By the way, I know we've had these type of conversations in the past. He might be the best player I ever played against, Eric Kendricks at UCLA.
Really? Oh yeah, the UCLA year.
Oh, damn good. He's such a smart football player. And he's lost a little bit of athleticism over the years, but he has the athleticism to make up ground if he makes a wrong read or if he's out of place. But nine tackles, 2 sacks, and an interception. That is a stat line.
Yeah, but I'll give you a guy to watch moving forward. He's a second-year guy, missed his whole entire rookie season. DeMarvion Overshown, from Texas, was a third-round pick in 2023. He looked incredible. He looked like he was shot out of a cannon every single time. And we'll see how it goes for the rest of the year. Obviously, like I said, my hopes aren't going to be up until something happens in the playoffs, but Dallas is probably going to have
what about Dax? What about Dak's old deal?
I'm glad they got it done. I don't care that it's $60 million. We knew it was going to be $60
that.
million. We said that 100 times that it was going to be $60 million. So I'm not tripping about the deal. It had to get done. I'm glad it got done before the season, and he didn't hit free agency. I know the stat line wasn't incredible in this game, but the first half he was surgical. He was really good. Dax,
one of the
better quarterbacks in the league, so pay him. I'm fine with it.
Final deal was 4 years, $240. You saw the guaranteed money though.
231. Yeah.
Just go to 240.
Just do the whole thing.
What are you saving $9 million for? Give him and I wonder if that was the point of contention that held it up until the Sunday. That's so dumb.
You know he's a penny pincher, man.
$9 million. You really were haggling over $9 million on a freaking $60 million per year contract. Get the hell out of here.
It's Jerry.
All right, Kenny. Again, it just goes to show the Cowboys, the Joneses will make it harder than it needs to be. That's just
always.
That's just, death taxes and the Joneses screwing up contract negotiations.
Fair enough.
All right, third topic. We had three rookie starting quarterbacks in week one. Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels. Wasn't pretty, boys. What y'all think?
I have to rescind, was it 3 weeks ago? I have to rescind
Your Bo Nix
my Bo Nix Hall of Fame induction speech. I have to take that one back, at least for the time being. We'll let that one marinate.
Wow.
Going to have to throw for a touchdown before I do that.
Yeah, it was rough. Caleb Williams could not get any kind of rhythm going. He threw for less than 100 yards in this game. The defense is
no offensive touchdowns.
No offensive touchdowns.
Caleb Williams offense.
Yeah,
they scored 21 straight points on defensive touchdowns.
Buddy, what the hell was that? 93 yards passing? What?
Hey,
it seemed like it's impossible. And now I'll tell you what, if the Bears fans wanted their first 4,000-yard passers, you're already behind the 8 ball.
Uphill battle.
It's going to be really hard now.
But okay, I'm not going to overreact. I know you're not either. It's week one. There's a lot of talent on this team. But if this keeps going, they got to get rid of Shane Waldron. I'm sorry, they got to get rid of Shane Waldron.
Already, it's week one. We're like, this guy.
They got to get rid of him.
You want to get rid of him already?
I didn't say right now. I said if it keeps going. If they're not able to figure it out with this weaponry, they got to make a change because they've got too much talent. They've got too much talent. He pissed away Jackson Smith and Jigba last year. He cannot do that with the Bears this year. There's too much talent.
But then Jaden Daniels was probably the best of the bunch, right?
I mean, the stat line wasn't great, and I know a lot of that came in kind of garbage time. But to me,
he ran the hell out of the ball, though.
He was by far the best of the bunch, and I'm not saying he was great. That's just how bad Bo Nix looked terrible.
He looked horrible. 17 for 24, though, 184. No interceptions, didn't have a turnover, but then 16 carries for 88 yards, 2 TDs. He's going to have to be careful, though. I don't want to see – he fumbled, but he's a little too –
They recovered all of them, but he fumbled 3 times.
Yeah, he's a little too thin to be running that ball as upright as he does.
If he gets down, he's fine. He just refuses to get down.
Yeah, just like Lamar did on Thursday Night Football. Jesus, dude, freaking slide just once. For God's sakes, you lost all that weight too. That's all anybody can talk about. And you just took every hit possible on your body. And then Bo Nix, again, I'm going to rescind my Canton induction speech because he looked like
off on that.
He looked like shit. He looked bad. Man. He 2 picks, threw for 150, maybe less than that, 130, something like that.
130.
He had the 1 TD rushing, which was I guess somewhat impressive, but he just didn't look good.
And it was at the end of the game.
Yeah, and I also need to be careful. I wanted to take the Broncos over. I didn't ultimately take it. I'm glad I didn't take it at this point because I don't think that's a very good football team.
Yeah, he was 26 of 42 for 138 and 2 picks.
42.
It's really hard to have 26 completions
for 138 yards.
138 yards.
But Bo Nix is gonna Bo Nix.
It makes sense though. Like the reasons that I believed in him 3 weeks ago haven't changed because it's a Sean Payton offense, a lot of dink and dunk. A lot of getting into the voids in the zone defense and throwing guys open. He's always done that. So I think he can be successful, but this week was just ugly.
Yeah, and in their defense, I mean, I don't know. Did we say this on the show or did I say this before the show? There's so much of this is just in the fact that they don't get the same amount of reps that rookie quarterbacks used to get or quarterbacks in general.
I think quarterbacking as a whole.
But here's the thing that I don't understand. I get protecting your rookie quarterback. But at the same time,
he's going to take his hits and get hurt. Do it when they're young.
Let them play in the preseason. They've got to play more than a drive or two. And like Caleb Williams would play 2 drives. Jaden Daniels played maybe 3 or 4 drives the entire preseason. There's already 1 less preseason game. We're down from 4 to 3. There's less practices. There's less opportunities to get live game reps. Like they need those. Clearly, they need those. Now, by week 6 or 7, we could be saying these guys are, the top 3 players in the offensive rookie of the year race, and I don't think that would be super shocking other than Bo Nix. The other 2 wouldn't be shocking at least. But they just need more time. They just need more time.
Yeah, they do. And what shocks me too, just in general, only 2 300-yard passers in the whole league.
It was.
There's Tua and Matt Stafford who lost the game.
And it's the same reasons I just said. They just don't have time to get game reps or to get the feel for games. And it really, at this, like, especially going to this 18-game season, you're trying to protect and pull back even more. And it's like football really doesn't start until like week 3 or 4. Like weeks 1 and 2 for sure are going to be sloppy, and you maybe around the week 4 mark, you're like, oh, okay, everybody's at their A game now.
Let's also tell a lot of truth here too. A lot more too high looks where nobody's letting you beat them over top.
Yeah.
The only big plays you see now are Tyreek Hill outrunning a defense. That's what like it's just as a quarterback, you just have to be surgical and not make any mistakes because everybody's keeping everything in front of them since Patrick Mahomes came into the league.
Yeah, you have to take your opportunities when you get them, and they just come fewer and far between than they used to. Gabe, any other thoughts before we jump out of here? Are you ready?
Well, I got one more. We're gonna do a hot 3+1.
Oh,
we didn't talk about this before, but we've forgotten it's UFC 306 this weekend. Riyadh season Noche, whatever it's called, at the Sphere in Las Vegas. Sean O'Malley, Merab Dvalishvili, Alexa Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko, Brian Ortega, Diego Lopez. You guys at all interested in this fight card?
Oh, God,
I mean, yeah, of course. It's a UFC pay-per-view. It's the first one in the Sphere. Yeah, there's all that, but the card is not great. It's really like Sean and Merab, which really isn't a very exciting fight anyway because Merab's involved in it, and he's not very exciting. I think by far the best fight on the card is Brian Ortega and Diego Lopez. That's what you got. We've
still
seen
wish Diego Lopez would change his haircut. That is just the worst shit you'll ever see in your life.
He looks like a Twilight vampire. Like that's what I think.
He kind of does.
I
like that.
I honestly, like, I don't have too many thoughts about this. Like even looking at the prelims, which we usually are excited.
You got Raul Rosas.
I'm not excited about. I don't get excited about him.
But you got Rosas on the prelims just to see. See, I think he's early prelims.
He's early prelims.
He's one of the first fights, yeah.
Yeah, I think more than anything, this will be optically really, really cool.
Let's be honest, though, and we talked about this in the pretty recently, I think. There's just this changing of the guard at the top of every division where it's like you have to really decide who's going to sell pay-per-view, who you're going to push out. They're still holding on with Volk and Max Holloway and all these other guys, and it's John Jones and Connor, and there's just going to come a point where you're going to have to start selling other guys more, and you'll get people more excited for those people because they're out in the public eye more. But I think we're in a transition period. It's been a weird time for the UFC.
Yeah, it is. And if Sean wins this fight in convincing fashion, then he takes one step closer to being like that.
Yes,
the number one guy at the UFC.
It definitely feels like this fight card is more promoting what the UFC is going to do inside the Sphere than it is the actual 100%. Card.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
So they call it a love letter to the Mexican fighters, and it's Sean O'Malley and Merab Dvalishvili.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah. No, it's UFC. It'll be fun. It'll be the production will be incredible, which will be worth watching in and of itself.
That is kind of fun. I didn't even think about it that way. This is supposed to be like Mexican heritage fight, and in the main fight you have a super American guy versus where's Merab from? Even that's a good question. Where's Merab from?
I don't even know. Let me see.
He's from Georgia.
He's from Georgia. Yeah,
he's Georgian. Yeah, that's not much for Mexican heritage, is it?
No, it's not. All right, boys. Well, let's wrap it up. We appreciate you guys for joining us this week. If you are watching on YouTube, you can like, subscribe, and comment there. If you're listening, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, you can do the same there. You can also head over to bluffcitymedia.co, check out all the podcasts, articles, and videos on the site. Once again, we appreciate you guys for joining us, and we will see you back here next week.
Thank you for listening to On the Bluff. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. Head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co for comprehensive coverage of Memphis sports and how you can become an insider.